find out how my next guest went from young mother to real estate rock star, and now she calls herself a lazy girl on show number 8. Hello, everyone. This is Ruben Galindo. I'm a real estate agent, real estate investor out of San Antonio, Texas. Today, I have the privilege of talking to April Crossley. April, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for your time. I'm pretty excited about this opportunity. I've spoken with you before. I've been watching your videos for about a couple of years now. Very informational. So I'm excited for the opportunity to interview you, and so you can tell the audience, give them some nuggets about real estate investing. So again,
yeah, I'm excited.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So let's, first of all, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into real estate after that.
Sure. So my businesses are in Berks County, Pennsylvania. My husband and I actually just sold our house. So we're traveling in our RV around the United States. I don't know for how long. We used to just go to Arizona in the winter, and now we've just sold our house and kind of are traveling for a while. So I'm a long distance landlord now, and I run a flip business from a long distance. And we're kind of like working on buying bigger stuff, larger multifamily, and that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So what kind of, let's start. What led you to real estate?
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's degree in biology. So I tell everyone I knew nothing about real estate or financial education. I actually picked up a book. My husband was a real estate agent, and he owned 2 small investment properties. So I picked up a book he was reading called The 1 Minute Millionaire. And I started reading it, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, this book was telling all these stories about these people who had purchased real estate, and then they had equity build up in this house because their tenants paid off the home, and they got to keep all that equity, all that money. And I was like, why would somebody pay off someone else's house? This is crazy. Like, I was not financially educated at all. And I was renting a house at the time when I met my husband. I didn't understand it at all. So I think I pretty much started to prove that the book was a lie. I was like, this has to be a lie. This is not true. And then quickly discovered that it wasn't. And after I did my first flip, because I did a flip first, that was the first thing we did. I was just like instantly hooked on real estate. Yeah.
Okay. So you started flipping then, not necessarily buy and hold.
We actually flipped, and then I think we flipped one, and then we bought a 6-unit, and then we flipped some more and bought some more rentals. And then now we flip more than we flipped before. I think just market conditions are kind of crazy right now, and people are paying a lot. So we've been flipping a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. So one thing I want to share, April, I know you have co-authored a couple books, and I have this one right here.
Oh, cool.
So I read your story on page 252, and man, I tell you what, it wasn't all fun and games when you first got started, was it? As far as your adult life. I don't know if you're comfortable with sharing some of that, but I think it's important for people to see that there's a lot of things that people can overcome if you just put your mind to it.
Yeah, for sure. I just think when I had my son when I was 16 years old, a couple of days before I turned 17, actually. And it was just like, complicates things and makes things harder. Like, it's the most rewarding thing I think that can happen to you in life is having a child, but it also made my path very difficult because I was still in high school. I had to go back to finish my senior year. I had to get a college degree because I had to support my son. So there were literally days I would wake up in the morning, drive my son, drop him off at daycare, drive to high school, go to school all day, drive back and pick up my son at daycare, and then go back home. Yeah. And then same thing with college. So I think you just do whatever it takes when you're in that moment. I say now, I'm like, how did I ever live like that? I only got like 4 hours of sleep. Back in those days, now I sleep 8 hours, and I'm like, I still feel sleepy.
Yeah.
But I wasn't financially educated. I was collecting food stamps. I remember sitting in the welfare office like, oh my gosh, this is happening. Like, here I am. I can't even like support myself with the income that I make. I had college loans out on everything. No one was paying for my college education. That was 100% on me. So when I graduated college, I had a great job, but I also had a lot of debt to pay off. So then to come from that to, okay, I have a job. I'm going to be the CEO of a hospital. I'm going to get my master's degree. I'm just going to keep educating myself. And I was always taught what most people are taught. You go to school, you retire at age 65, and then that's when you get to live your life.
Right.
So when I picked up this book and was reading that that's not the way things have to be, I was like, what? Like, I was so to just one way of doing things. So yeah.
So yeah, and I, in the book you talk about the first lesson number one. I don't know if it was ranked in the order of importance or just because just the way it was, but you talk about, you say that you can do anything if you want it bad enough, and that's exactly what you did, and that is so true. You know, I'm not trying to compare my story to yours, because obviously I was a young father as well. I was 18 years old. I was a senior in high school. I kind of had a plan in mind as far as my career was concerned. I had it all planned out. And well, when that occurred, it didn't necessarily go that way. However, I still was able to kind of find another path, but I still got to the ultimate goal. You know, that's great. I know being a female is very hard already, you know, having to take care of a child, because usually the female is the caretaker, right? So you got everything to do, you know. As a guy, I didn't have that caretaking responsibility as much as the mother, right? So kudos to you.
Right. Yeah.
So around what age did you get into real estate investing, or how old were you at the time, if you don't mind sharing that?
26 is when I flipped my first house.
That is awesome. Awesome. You see, I got a late start. I was 45 when I just started. I became a Bigger Pockets Pro member and just started just absorbing as much knowledge as I could. And I bought my first investment when I was 46. And well, I take that back. No, I was 44. I was 45 because I'm going on 40 years and I'm fixing to be 49 years old. So I wish I would have started a lot earlier. Of course, I wasn't making the money back then that I do now. So things have really changed for me. But
that's great. Funny. No matter what age you start at, everyone's path is kind of a little different. So I know people that started way later than me, but have purchased a lot more or way further ahead than what I am. And vice versa. I just think it kind of depends where your journey takes you. In the beginning, I couldn't think big enough to do more than what I just had to do to get out of my job. Like, I didn't have the capability of thinking big enough, like that I could do more than that. So mine was a very slow journey to retirement. And I eventually retired when I was 35 from my healthcare career. Yeah.
Okay. So, wow. So for a newbie investor, what's your advice? You got, you know, I'm currently working with brand new investors. I get a lot of phone calls with people that want to get into real estate investing. You know, what is it? What would you tell somebody who approaches you and says, "Hey, April, I'd like to get started." What do you tell them as far as strategy, buy and hold versus flipping or whatever?
Yeah, I typically tell people if they really need to assess their personal financial situation. So do you have good credit? Do you have any money, any cash? If you don't, then I typically tell them the best route to go is flipping first so that they can start paying off some debt. And the way to do that is to joint venture with another investor who's more experienced. And if they have some cash and they have some liquidity and they have good credit and they could get pre-qualified for a cash out refinance, then I tell them they should go the route of buying rentals, because they can do a cash out refinance on rentals. In both situations, I always tell people you have to have a coach or a mentor or someone mentoring you. Sometimes that's best to have locally. Sometimes it's not best to do it locally. You got to find someone you connect with as a mentor. But that's probably my biggest regret, is not always having a mentor. I did off and on for a while, and now I don't think I would ever want to be without one, without a coach or a mentor kind of like pushing me. So yeah, I usually tell them kind of assess where they're at financially and personally and see what they think is a good fit for them and then decide from there.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, so you talk about maybe doing fix and flip so you can pay off some debt and possibly get some capital going. So, how does a brand new investor do that when they don't have any experience? So, how do you get somebody in a joint venture situation where they're willing to invest in you if you have no track record?
Yeah, I tell newbies all the time, the most important thing to flippers is deals, finding deals. If you can learn how to find deals, that's all you need to know. Even if you're unsure if it's a deal, you just have to be able to take something to a more experienced investor and say, hey, I found this seller. Can you help me run numbers on this? If it's a deal, I would love to partner up with you. And then create a joint venture where you're both in on the project. They're bringing the deal and the more experienced investors bringing the money, the contractor, everything else. So they have to understand that sometimes in the beginning, the deal split isn't going to be 50-50. Like they're getting 50% profit as a newbie and you're getting 50% profit as the joint venture partner, because you have to consider what you bring to the table. When I started, we had to bring sweat equity to the table, but we didn't have money and we didn't have the contractors or the experience. So that came with time. You won't have to team up with someone forever, but in the beginning, it doesn't matter what your credit is. You don't have to wholesale. People say you have to wholesale to build capital. That's not true. You just have to create relationships with people that are already in the game and doing it, so that you have someone to go to when you find a deal that can fund the deal and team up with you. Yeah.
Right.
It's all
Yeah.
about relationships.
Absolutely. I started my first deal. Of course, it was a buy and hold, not necessarily fix and flip, but in a joint venture as well with a friend of mine. And he's the one that found the deal, and he was kind enough to just go 50-50 because we both put in 50-50 as far as the money is concerned. But I kind of took care of the management piece of it after we bought it, and that for him it was hands off for the most part.
Yeah.
But I kind of enjoyed that because I really learned a lot just doing that. And now I self-manage. So it's kind of taught me a lot. So it's been great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Great thing.
perfect way to learn and see the whole process without having to carry the weight of everything on your shoulders. Even as we buy bigger, there's newbies at different levels in real estate investing. So even buying bigger multifamily and bigger mobile home parks, I'm not doing that on my own. Like I'm going to go in and buy this mobile home park or buy this large multifamily. I have people around me that I know that they do that if I find something that I feel on the surface might be a deal or a motivated seller, I'm just going to take it to those people and say, hey, I found this mobile home park. Like, how can we make this happen? And I understand the position I'm coming from with less knowledge. I don't expect things to be split 50-50,
Right.
Yeah.
Has your experience been that, newbie investors that are looking for that joint venture relationship, how do they react to that that non 50-50 split? What's been your experience with that? Are they a little reluctant at that point? Do they get a little suspicious, or what's been your experience? Or they understand it and they accept it and they move on?
Yeah, I think they're pretty understanding of it. I typically tell people, like I run a very large meetup group in my area, and I have a lot of Facebook groups revolving around real estate investing in my area. So I always tell people, I have a big reputation on the line. So I know it takes a lot of trust on both parts, but if I screw you over, I've got a lot to lose because you can slam my name everywhere. If you screw me over, no one really knows who you are yet. Like you don't have a reputation in the real estate community. So I have a lot to lose. And usually when I explain that to them, then they have a better understanding and they're more trusting to move forward with the deal.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You've already done all the hard work to build up your reputation, and you have the credibility. So, people, newbie investors just need to understand that. And I think most people that are really serious about it, I think they do understand, they respect that, and they move on forward because eventually they'll be in your shoes potentially, right? They'll eventually, if they do well, they will be able to do the same for others as well. So I have a question.
And
I wanted.
And if you look at it,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was frozen a little bit. So I think there was like a little bit of a delay. It's probably
Yeah.
on my end because I'm in the middle of kind of nowhere. But I was just saying, if you look at what the cost of most real estate education is these days with, gurus and stuff, it can be very expensive. So you're going to get way more education out of joint venturing on a deal, way more education. So it's
Yeah.
like you might not be getting 50% of the profit, but you're learning. And that's way more than money is ever going to give you. It really is.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, since we're talking about newbie investors, I listened to the podcast you did with Michael Zuber at One Rental
Mm-hmm.
at a Time. And he was kind enough to allow me to interview him as well, and I was on his show as well. So, uh, I've been really starting to read his book as well. I'm not quite done with it yet, but in listening to your podcast with him, you talk about chasing butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that to the audience?
Yeah, I feel like newbie investors get very starry-eyed about different things, especially like different avenues of making money in real estate. So someone tells them flipping's great. Oh, I think I lost you, Ruben. Do I have you?
I can hear you. Yeah. I see you just fine.
Okay, so they say flipping's great, so they want to do flipping. And then someone tells them rental properties is where it's at, so they want to do rentals. And someone's like Airbnb, and they're like, oh, I'm going to do Airbnb. And then, oh, but flipping mobile homes is great too. And they're like, oh, I want to do flipping mobile homes, but they never master one thing before moving on to the next. So they never set up the flip business the way it should be set up. And I'm speaking from experience because as entrepreneurs, we often chase butterflies just because that's our nature. We get excited about things. We want to build businesses, but you really have to focus and master one thing, like master the flipping business, maybe alongside with mastering the rental business, then go into something else like Airbnb, or do what's a fit for your market. I know Michael's big on like analyzing your market. Some people live in an Airbnb market. So I would tell them, then master Airbnbs. Don't worry about mastering flipping, master Airbnbs, but don't chase butterflies. Like newbies spend a lot of time reading posts and comments and blogs and this and that and listening to podcasts, and they're trying to do a million different things at once. And really it all comes back to finding a deal, especially for a newbie. Just learn how to find deals first. If you do that, you can learn the rest along the way. You really can.
Right. And I've kind of experienced that a little bit with investors that want to get started. They're one day they're talking about flipping, the other day they're talking about buy and hold. And so I started asking them questions. Okay, so what are your numbers? Have you analyzed? What kind of numbers are you coming up with?
Mm-hmm.
And I can see they're struggling a little bit because they don't quite understand it. And like you just said, find what it is that you want to do, what that market is popular for, and then focus on that. Learn how to analyze that. That is one of the most important things, is just learning how to analyze. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I get, if I have a client send me a property, for example, I'll ask them, okay, what are the numbers? And some of these are in certain areas that I'm already aware of, but I'm asking them, okay, what kind of numbers did you come up with? Just to see if, how they're working it. Because there's a lot of things they do not take into consideration.
Yeah, a lot. And it's work, and you have to sit down and do the nitty-gritty work, and it's not fun. It's not fun. When I first started analyzing, and my husband was basically like my first mentor, and he was teaching me about closing costs and this and that, I would drive him crazy because I hated it. I hated analyzing deals. I just absolutely hated it. But I had to learn it. Learn it. And now that I'm looking in the larger multifamily space, it's the same thing. I freaking hate it. I freaking hate analyzing those deals. Drives me nuts. It's like this huge spreadsheet. I'm like, I don't even understand it. It drives me crazy. And it's taking through it. But if I just practicing, it's soon gonna come to me just like that.
Right. So you're no longer in single family. Now you're doing mainly multifamily apartments. You're looking at 1 to 4 or big properties. Is that where you're at now?
So right now I'm looking for big properties, big, like 30, 50, 100 units, stuff like that. But we don't own any of that yet. So most of the multifamily we own now are 8 units, 6 units, 4 units, 3 units, stuff in that range that we purchased from like small mom and pop sellers in our area, which I really like because those properties on some of them we have seller financing because those mom and pops want to keep making cash flow off of it. Those are my favorite type of properties to buy are from the mom and pop sellers. Yeah.
So what was that, and I'm talking about a buy and hold deal. What was that first deal that you got that was a successful deal for you? Do you remember that one? Or better yet, what's been the best deal? How's that? Do you recall what the best deal was?
The best deal? I don't know. A lot of people ask that question. I'm never quite sure. I know the easiest one we ever did was we purchased a property in our inner city for $10,000 and walked across the street and sold it to a neighbor for $20,000. That was the easiest. And the reason we were able to do that is because the seller, it was an estate property, and the seller told us the neighbor across the street wanted to buy it. So we were like, well, you should sell it to the neighbor. And he's like, he doesn't speak English. So we're like, okay, well, you could get a translator. And he was just like, no, he doesn't speak English. And I just want this property sold. And like, he doesn't speak English and I just don't want to talk to him. And so we were like, okay. So we bought the house and you could live in it and everything, all the appliances, kitchenware, furniture, everything was there. Like the person had just walked right out the front door. And we walked across the street and sold it to the neighbor for double what we bought it for. And they brought a wad of cash to the table. We just asked for a translator to come to the door because we told them we didn't speak Spanish. And they brought someone to translate to the door. And they were like completely floored that we were selling them this house full of furniture and everything. So happy, over the moon happy. So that was probably the easiest one we've ever done.
Nice. Interesting. Yeah. What about that nightmare deal?
Nightmare deal was one I did a seller finance on. It was a single family home. That part was fine. The seller finance was fine. We lease optioned it to a tenant. So I had a payment going out to the seller on seller finance, and then a payment coming in from the tenant on a lease option. They put like $10,000 down. We're paying $1,200 a month. And this was back when I was still working full-time. So I'm working full-time. We're building our real estate portfolio. We weren't flipping a whole ton. We were like, all right, we're going to lease option to them and they're going to buy it. Well, it ended up being like a messy divorce situation with part of the family basically just squatting in the house and not paying. So they weren't paying the $1,200 a month. They weren't paying the water bill, which was like $400 some a quarter. They just stopped paying all their bills and we couldn't get them out. We went to eviction court and we lost at the eviction hearing because the judge said, this is a lease option. It's not a straight rental. So I don't really deal with this type of hearing. So I'm going to send you to I forget what they call it, like basically the next level of court, and it can cost $10,000 and it can take up to a year for you to like see a judge at that level of court.
Wow.
So it was very frustrating, and I wasn't a very patient, very nice landlord going through that process. Like looking back on myself, I was very stressed because I was working full time and I had payments on a seller finance, and I refuse. When a seller turns into basically the mortgage company because they're financing the property for you, I refuse to not pay that seller.
Right.
So then I'm working my butt off at my job, extra hours to do what I have to do to pay my own mortgage, plus pay the seller finance because these tenants are just squatting in my house. So actually my attorney who drew up all my paperwork for me was like disgusted with the judge and just said, you have to do what you have to do to get them out. So I went to them and said, I can't afford to pay the water bill anymore. So the water's going to be shut off. So you can live here with no water, or I can move you to another rental property that's cheaper. So I had another rental I had just purchased and I moved them to that rental property for, it was like half the amount they were paying in the house they were squatting in.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I got them on lease agreement victim.
No more lease with the option to buy. So can you explain?
Right.
So can you explain to the audience what that is? Lease with the option to buy, just kind of basically what it means.
last. So I don't know if I'm the best person to explain it because I was scarred by that experience. So I never did another lease with option to buy. But it's basically where they put a pretty significant amount of money down and then they're making monthly payments to you. And then they have a certain time period. So they're responsible for all the repairs and upkeep of the property. You don't have to pay for any of the maintenance because they basically, quote unquote, somewhat have not ownership in it, but they feel more like they own it because their end goal is to ultimately buy it. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I've never tried that strategy quite yet because what you said, I'm a little afraid to do that, and
Yeah.
so I just kind of stay. If I'm not comfortable with it, I try to stay away. So,
Yeah,
but
and that's how I am. That's how I am. In some areas, that's all people do, and they do very well with it. And I think it really depends on your state and how your district justices are and how they view it, and make sure your paperwork's drawn up by an attorney, and you should be
right.
good. Yeah.
So I wonder if your situation, I'm just curious that it was probably a justice of the peace level. Maybe they asked you to appeal it to the county court level or something like that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Because here in Texas, usually evictions are heard by justice of the peace here locally. But anyhow,
Yep.
interesting. One thing that I have thought about, and I wonder if you've done this, is owner finance on a property where it's not necessarily a lease option, but it's an owner finance where you actually sell the home and hold a note. And then if they
Mm-hmm.
don't pay, I guess you'd have to do an actual foreclosure at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You,
Yeah.
you-
Yep. I've never done that.
yeah.
I mean, I've done private loans to people where they buy rental property to me and I hold the private loan long term for them. So I'm acting as the bank, but I've never done it for a buyer of one of my properties.
And in those situations, are you the first lien holder on that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Always. Yeah.
How's that working out for you?
Good. I like it. I mean, I do it with people that I know and I trust that are in my market, but private lending is my favorite thing. I mean, my end goal is to be the biggest private lender I can be. I'm far from that right now, but I don't envision myself flipping and buying rental properties forever. I just want to kind of sit in the private lending seat and enjoy real estate from there because it's a lot easier. It's a lot
Okay.
easier. Yeah.
So let's transition to your business. I know you have courses, right? And then I guess you do private lending, or what kind of business do you have? What is it that you do? I know about the courses, but can you explain that?
Sure, yeah. So I have a company called LazyGirl Consulting or LazyGirl REI, and we just teach newbies how to buy and hold and flip with other people's money because I never used any of my own money from the beginning. We've always used private money. I've purchased all my properties with private money. So we teach people just how to work with private money lenders, how to raise capital, how to find private money lenders. And then I also have a lot of people that come to me just to learn how to be a private money lender. Like a lot of people think because they have money, they have to flip houses or they have to hold rental property, but they don't have time. They just have money they want a good return on. So I try to educate them and teach them about what private lending is so that they don't
I lost.
make returns of real estate.
Yeah, I lost you there for a second, but you were saying that you teach others how to be private money lenders as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
is that a course on your website as well?
Not to teach people if they want to go that route. I just hack me directly and we.
I lost you again. You were saying that private lending is not an actual course on your website. Is that correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So your courses online is just about how to teach a newbie investor how to invest with private money.
Yep. With
Yeah.
other people's money. Yeah.
So
Yep.
what can you tell the audience where they can find that course?
Sure. It's lazygirlrei.com.
LazyGirl REI.com.
rei.com.
Okay.
Yep.
And do you have anything else that you sell on your website, or is it just the courses? Is there anything else?
We have our courses and we have like our deal analyzer. So when I put a deal package together for private lenders, I have a deal analyzer use things analyzer I use. It's just a way to put all your numbers from one spreadsheet so your private lender can easily look at them and analyze your deal to see if they want to fund it or not.
Okay. And I assume you do not self-manage, right?
I do.
Oh, you do? Awesome.
I do. Yeah.
Great. How's that been?
It's been a process. I don't really do it by choice. I do it because we don't have competent management in my market. So I have to do it. But it's good. All our tenants pay rent online. I have an agent that places my tenants for me. I have a contractor that does all my turns and keeps an eye on all my buildings. So we do everything pretty much from a distance. And so far, knock on wood, it's going pretty good.
What software do you use to manage your property and collect payments? Is there a certain software you use?
Yep, we use Cozy, cozy.co. Yeah, I really like it. And tenants can do their maintenance requests through there. So like I have a rule that they're not allowed to contact me via my phone unless it's an emergency. So all maintenance requests have to go through Cozy because the phone is so disruptive. Like as soon as you get a text, you feel like you have to read it. And I don't want those texts coming to my phone. So they put all their maintenance requests in the maintenance request, which is nice.
Right. And that's exactly what I use. I self-manage as well. Of course, I only have 5 properties, but I use Cozy. It's been great. You know,
Yeah.
And I have not used the maintenance request option. I don't recall seeing that when I first started, and I got it about 4 years ago. So I don't know if that necessarily was there, but now they also have a expense tracking option as well in there.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yes, they do.
Cool.
But it's been great, and it's free. As far as I know, it's
Yeah.
still free.
Yeah.
It's been great. So wow. All right. Well, good, man. I'm kind of surprised, but then I thought, you know what? I think in your interview with Mike Zuber, you actually said that. I think you actually said that you did not do that because he doesn't self-manage. He said, "Oh heck no, I would not do that."
Yeah. We have a pretty well-oiled machine in place, and it took us years to get there, but I'm proud of where it's at right now, and it runs really well. And I'm really lucky to have the people I have up for.
Right. And that's the most important thing, is to have your team in place.
Yeah.
You know, I can be anywhere if something happens, whether it's, and the one I use the most is my plumber. That's been the guy that I've used the most. And then every now and then my AC guy.
Yep.
But they're just a phone call away or text away, and I already have a good relationship with them. They go take care of it. I contact the tenants. Hey, how did everything go? Went great. And quick and easy.
Yeah, it's so nice. So nice when you can find good people. Yeah, I lost my plumber there for a while, and it was painful until I found someone else. And then I had an HVAC turnover. I had to find an new HVAC guy, and the one company said to me, "We'll only take care of it if you meet us at the house." I'm like, "I'm the landlord. I don't live there." The tenant, and he's like, "Yeah, we won't meet the tenant. You have to be there." I'm like, "Then I can't work with your company. Sorry." Like, and I'm like, I can't be at every call that you have to go to. I don't even live at the house, and I'm not in the state, and that was their requirement. So I was like, it's fine that that's your requirement, but I can't work with your company. So
I had an appliance guy tell me the same thing, and I said, but I'm a landlord. I'm not going to be there for that. I just need somebody to go look at the refrigerator. And he said, well, then you're going to have to pay with a credit card when I get there for my service call. I said, that's fine. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
And then after that, I didn't hear that anymore. I guess I understand, you know, I got to make sure.
Yeah, me too.
So it's just business, you know, it's nothing personal.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyhow, so is there anything that you would do different with your real estate investing at the moment, or when you first got started? Was there anything that you would say you would do different?
I think if I were to do anything differently, I would just have a coach. I really think having a coach or being a mastermind group or something forces you to think bigger and strive for bigger and better things. So my only regret really is not being part of some kind of coaching or mastermind the whole way through. I did a lot of self-learning, which led to learning the hard way. I wish I would have just gotten myself around bigger thinkers a lot faster.
Right. Yeah. So are all your properties in Pennsylvania?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Around the same general area where you lived at?
Yep. Yep. All
Yeah,
in Berks County. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have all my properties here in the San Antonio Bexar County area.
Yeah.
Of course, I've been here recently. I've been kind of tempted to try a fix and flip. But I work full time, so it's hard for me to, because I'm the kind of guy that I want to be there and monitor the project, making sure things are getting done. Because I've had a little experience in renovations in my own personal house, wherein I had a hailstorm and my roof was shot, ceilings came crashing down, and just going through that experience of getting contractors in there to fix my house was stressful. And,
Yeah.
I felt like I had to, and maybe it was my fault for not picking a good contractor, but how do you know if you're picking a good one? You just don't
Right.
know, right? You just
Right.
kind of take that chance. And I'm glad I was there. I took time off of work and just monitored the project. And it was, I actually had to fire one of them and had
Yeah.
to get a new contractor in there.
Yeah.
So do you have somebody like a project manager for your fix and flips, or is that something you do?
I do. I have a project manager.
You
Yep.
do?
And then I have just my regular contractor I've worked with for a long time. He was referred to me by someone, and he's been great. But contractors come and go, and they can start out good and they'll go bad. So I always tell people that get into flipping, everyone thinks the money is the hardest thing to find. And I'm like, it's a good contractor. A good contractor is going to make or break your business in the flip business. It really is. And like in your situation, and even Michael Zuber, like he's big on buy and hold, and his story
Mhm.
of, buying as he was working full time as well. It's everybody has their different things that they do. And for me, flipping is what got me out of my job. So now flipping is my job. It's what creates my income to keep me out of working from someone else. So eventually I will stop flipping when I own enough rental units or I have enough money that I can just private lend. So now flipping's my job that got me out of my job. So it kind of depends on what your goals are. For you in your situation, I would say if you did anything, if you came across a deal and it didn't work for you as a rental, you could joint venture with someone that's already flipping in your area and get
Yeah.
a piece of the pie just for referring that deal to them. Yeah. But the
Interesting.
whole even finding deals for a flip business right now it's a small business that you're starting, but it's a huge undertaking. We have like a huge marketing machine that's constantly going and marketing for deals. So it's not an easy task if it's something you want to do full time. Which is why it's like when I was working full time, we weren't flipping as many houses as we're flipping now, but I was flipping enough that it got me out of my job. But I feel like to really grow wealth, buying rentals is where it's at. That's
Right.
really what you need to be doing.
And that's where my comfort level is at
Yeah.
personally is, yeah, there's work on the front end, but once I get that property and the properties I buy are just cosmetic type of repairs.
Yeah.
I don't relocate walls, it's nothing like
Yeah.
that. I don't have to fix foundations. It's pretty much cosmetic, and within a week or two, it's done.
Yeah.
And I put it on the market, get it rented out, and then it's just on cruise control from there.
Yeah. That's nice.
So that's kind of where I'm at. And I got a few more years in my career and then I'm going to retire. So that's going to be helpful because I will have that pension. And I retired from the military reserves last year. So I'll have that as well.
Yeah.
And then hopefully my rentals will, continue to grow. Then my portfolio will
Yeah.
continue to grow. So that's kind of my
Yeah. That's
plan.
great. That's
So,
great.
and that's what I like about Michael Zuber. He talks about one rental at a time, and that's kind of, and this was before I even met Michael. That's the approach I took, not because that's what I was taught, that's what I learned. It's just that's all I could afford, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I've never raised private money. I've never
Hmm.
done that. I've been very fortunate that just through my savings,
Hmm.
and I became debt free first of all, and then I was making good money, and I just started saving it, and then I buy my next rental. Eventually, when
Good.
I got I think 3 rentals under my belt, a time frame of about 2 years on two properties had already passed, so I had enough equity where I could do a cash out refi, and I had more funds for other deals.
Good.
So it's been,
Well, kudos to you for investing wisely and not just saving money and spending it on things.
yeah. And you see a lot of that. Unfortunately, you see a lot of people that, you start making more money and they start buying all these toys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I understand me because I didn't get this mindset until I was older. When I was
Yeah.
younger, I had a completely different mindset. So, April, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know I'm just thankful that you allowed us to talk for a few minutes. Is there anything that we hadn't talked about that you would want to share with the audience about anything that we may have not covered?
I don't think so. I just like people to know that your primary job in real estate is always to just create good, strong relationships with other people in your market, and finding deals is number one. And if you don't have your own money, then finding money is your number two, that you need to be creating money relationships. If you have the deal, the money is going to come either in the form of a joint venture or finding a private lender that will fund that deal for you. So just focus on finding deals.
Okay, great. So
that's the ticket.
Yeah. What's the other book that you co-authored?
It's called The Only Woman in the Room. It's a book and it's by Ashley Wilson. It's a book for kind of just like female real estate investors and some inspiration about being a female in the business.
Okay, great. And then this one was Successful Habits of the Super Achievers.
Yeah.
Yep. So, all right. Well, great. April, again, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate that. If you're ever in the San Antonio area and you got some time, please reach out to me. I'd love to meet up with you and buy you dinner, you and your husband some dinner, and maybe we can just chat for a little bit. But thank you again. If there's anything I can ever do for you in the San Antonio area, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to help in whatever way that I can.
Thanks, Ruben.
All right.